Hey, it's Pastor Scott with extra seeds for Genesis 5 and 6. All right, as we think about what Paul is saying here in Romans chapter 1, 2, and 3 about that all of the nations, Jew and Gentile, both are finding themselves under the wrath of God, far from His grace. There's a couple of passages in Genesis that are important. We already looked at Genesis 5 and 6, but also in Genesis chapter 9. This is the passage when the flood waters have receded and Noah, who built the ark, now is given a covenant with God. It's called the Noahide covenant. All right, so in Hebrew, Noah is Noach. In Genesis 9, verses 1 through 17, in that covenant, God tells him, I will protect you. I will not send a flood again. I'll give the rainbow as a sign of a covenant. We're familiar with that. But he specifically asked Noah and his family to avoid idolatry, sexual immorality, the shedding of blood, and the ingesting of blood. Those are called the Noahide laws. These are exactly the laws that are repeated in Acts chapter 15. In Acts chapter 15, this is where the disciples, Paul, Barnabas, get together and they say, hey, the Gentiles are receiving God's Spirit just like we did without converting to Judaism. What should we tell them to do? They make the decision that they need to remind them to follow the laws of Noah, because even though the Moses covenant was only given to the Jewish people, the laws of Noah relate to all nations. So they are told specifically this, that we should not cause any extra difficulty for those among the Gentiles turning to God, but we should write to them a letter telling them to abstain from things defiled by idols. So there's idolatry, from sexual immorality. There's immorality. From what things have been strangled, there's eating blood, and from shedding blood, which is murder. So they draw directly from the commands to Noah and encourage the Gentile Christians to avoid these things. The exact things that were in the list of Romans chapter 1 that Paul tells the Christians in Rome to avoid. So these were kind of the big deal things that were part of the first century church. It was a law that was being brought forward. So we're going to find that as Paul goes through Romans, these specific things that were decided on in Acts chapter 15, the council that Paul was a part of, are going to be what he encourages the Roman believers to avoid. We think about these things in our own life as well. Idolatry, worshiping false gods, sexual practices that fall outside of what God has commanded, the shedding of blood, or violence against the image of God, gossip, slander, these kinds of things. These are still issues that are alive in the world today and separate the things of the flesh and the things of the Spirit. So that's a little bit of extra seed for us to think about, and how Noah and Genesis connects with Romans and Paul's directives to the church at Rome. All right, enjoy your study this week. We'll see you next week.